Hello, this short screen recording is supposed to show you how to use the newly developed slice stitching capability in ExoGENI. This ability lets you dynamically connect two slices together, and those slices can belong to the same user or to two different users. Let's start with a very simple example. I am connected to the ExoSM, as you can see. And if you look at my preference settings in Flux, I have slice stitching enabled. This is an important factor. You won't see menu options in Flux unless related to slice stitching unless you do this. And of course, Flux needs to be restarted every time you change the properties. I have two slices that are created on ExoSM. One is called slice1-stitch-PSC. It's 3 nodes. It's this slice at PSC rack, and another slice is actually inter-rack. It connects a node. Let me do a better layout. It connects a node at PSC, this node 0, with an additional broadcast link hanging off of here. This is what we're going to be stitching to some nodes at UFL. There's really no logic to this topology other than to show you that the topologies of slices you're stitching together can be very different. The only restriction is that the slices have to be touching each other on the same rack. So since these this node and this link belong to PSC rack, we can stitch them. We can stitch this link, this VLAN 0 link, to a node on PSC rack from the other slice. Otherwise, if you try to do this to connect a node to a link between two slices that are on different sites, you will get an error message. Notice that the current slice stitching capability only supports connecting a link in one slice to a node in another. It doesn't really matter which one is which, but they have to be different. So if we first look at these nodes, so this window here shows node 0 in the slice, and if we do an ifconfig, we see that it has two interfaces. One is this ETH0 with address 172.16.0.10, and that's the interface facing the UFL portion of the slice. And then the other one has an address of 172.16.101, and that actually hangs off of this broadcast link. But as you can see within this slice, only this node connects to this link. And what we would like to do is connect a node in the other slice to the same link. So now if we go and switch to the other slice, it's very simple, and we're going to connect this node 1. As you can see, it is also on the PSC rack. We're going to connect this node to the VLAN 0 link in the first slice. And if we look here, when we're logged into this node, it basically has two interfaces facing the other two nodes. One is 0.10, one is 0.2. And after slice stitching, what we'll see is we're going to see another interface here appear that connects us to the other slice. So there are several basic rules as to how the stitching has to work. First, you have to permit the stitch to happen in the first place. As an owner of the slice, you essentially have to issue permission to stitch to a particular element within your slice. So we're going to go switch to this other slice. I'm going to right click here, and as you can see, this is the submenu that shows all the stitching related operations. You can permit stitching, revoke stitching, perform stitching, undo stitching, and get stitching properties. Well, let's look first at the stitching properties. As you can see here, it says stitching is allowed because I've already set the password on this, and there has been already previously stitching done to this slice. The reason I know it has been done is because there is a date here when it was performed and also when it was undone. So, but I don't remember the password that I set on it, and in fact I am going to revoke stitching permissions from this. And as you can see, it just happens instantaneously, and if I just look at stitching properties again, it says stitching allowed no. So let's start from the beginning and now permit the stitching to this link. All I need to do is specify a password, and I specify some very interesting password here. And by the way, this password is never exposed in clear text anywhere, so you should not worry about the password security. And if I go back to get stitching properties, I can see stitching is allowed, yes, but password isn't exposed here. The other thing I need to know is this ID, the reservation ID. This relates this is the reservation ID of this link, and I need to essentially cut and paste it and give it to whoever is trying to stitch to my slice. They need to know three things. They need to know the name of the slice, they need to know the ID of this reservation, and they need to know the password. So the name of the slice is shown here, this is the reservation ID, and I know the password because I just said it. Now I'm going to switch to the other slice. And we'll do a better job with the layout. I'm going to go to node 1. In this case, it doesn't really matter which node I go to because they're all on the same aggregate, the same rack, but I'm going to go to this one. And I'm going to look at stitching properties briefly. As I can see, stitching to this node is not allowed, which is normal. And there actually has been a stitch to this, but it was undone. So there's no active stitches. So here I right-click and I say perform stitching. And I need to fill out this little form. I need to fill out the name of the slice, stitch slice 2 stitch psc ufl, that's what I called it. I need to paste the reservation ID here, and I need to type my super secret password. It also helps if I specify the IP address here, because otherwise how would I be able to connect, to actually communicate with the other slice? And if you recall, this was the address of the node on link VLAN0 in the second slice we're trying to stitch to. So I'm going to create something compatible here. I'm going to say 172.16.110/24. And I say OK, and the operation goes into effect immediately. Now, if we check a few seconds later, if we check the list of interfaces, you can see it's still only 2 interfaces. However, after about 30 seconds, no more than 30 seconds usually, you will see a new interface appear on this node as a result of the stitching operation. There you go. It's now called ETH4, and there's the address that I gave it. And so now if I try to say ping 172.16.100.1, which is the node in the other slice, all of a sudden I'm actually able to communicate with it. If moreover I will look at the stitching properties here, you can see that there's another stitch listed, which is the one we just created. It's to this other slice, to this reservation, created on this date in UTC, but there's no undone property, which means it's still active. And this is how you know whether anybody is actively attached to your slice. Now, let's say that something happens and you're the owner of the other slice and you really don't like what's going on traffic-wise. Somebody's doing something not very nice over that stitch link. So you can unstitch from the slices stitched to you just like they can unstitch from you. So this is a symmetric operation. I can simply go here and again get the stitching properties. As you can see here, we're listed as being stitched to the other slice. That's the ID of that slice, that's the reservation, and the date. So I need these 2 pieces of information, the 2 slice and the 2 reservation, to perform the undo operation. So I know the name of the slice, and I'm just going to cut and paste the name of the reservation. Here, I'm going to right click and say undo stitching. Password is not necessary here, you just say the name of the slice, slice1-stitch-psc, and paste the reservation ID, and you click OK, and let's just watch this window for a few seconds. You will see that the ping will stop because the system removes that interface on the node and the link between 2 slices is broken. And there we go, it's gone. If now I stop and look at ifconfig, the interface ETH4 is no longer there. If I also look at the stitching properties here, I see that there's an undone timestamp, which means this stitch is no longer active. And that is really it. That's all there's to it to slice stitching. We hope you get to use this functionality, and thank you for your interest.